Hi, my name is Sydney Berger, and today I'm going to be talking to you about color mixing.
Thinking back to kindergarten, when Miss McGillicuddy taught you how to mix yellow and blue, which makes green, blue mixed with red equals purple, and yellow and red make orange. This is of course all true, but would you believe it if I told you that the lessons Miss McGillicuddy taught you in kindergarten about color mixing aren't applicable to all colors that we see?
There are two main types of color mixing. You have your mixing of paint and your mixing of light.
Let's look at an example of paint mixing. Picture you have two tubes of paint. One contains blue paint and the other contains yellow paint. The reason we can see each of these colors is because they're absorbing and reflecting different wavelengths of light. Shorter wavelengths appear blue or violet, while others appear red. For instance, blue absorbs long wavelength light and reflects some medium wavelength light, while yellow absorbs short wavelength light and reflects some medium and long wavelength light. This is a concept called subtractive color mixing, and here's how it works. What's happening when colors are mixed together is that they are both then absorbed into the same wavelengths that they did when they were alone. But what we see are the wavelengths that they both share or reflect in common. Let's take a look at what's happening here. If blue exists on the left and yellow exists on the right, and the wavelength for blue looks like this curve, and the wavelength for yellow looks like this curve, when overlapped, you can see that the paint curves coincide with the peak reflectant curve for green paint.
Now, if the wavelengths were to change, for example, if blue reflected only short wavelengths and yellow reflected only long to medium wavelengths, when mixed together, they would not reflect any common color, therefore the appearance you would see is black.
Thankfully, however, most paints reflect more than one wavelength, which allows us to see or perceive a range of fun colors such as chartreuse, maltrite, and razzmatazz. Now that we have a pretty good handle on mixing color, let's take a look at mixing light. Sticking with blue and yellow color examples, we know what these paints looked like mixed together. But what if these two colors of light were projected on top of one another? The result you would see is actually white.
I'll give you a minute to process that.
Now that's definitely a topic that you didn't discuss in kindergarten.
But let's break this down now, shall we?
This is a concept called additive color mixing. Going back to wavelengths for a moment, each wavelength reflects into the eye a mixture of lights. Now, when a mixture of yellow and blue lights is projected onto a white surface, which reflects all wavelengths, they in turn are also reflecting into the observer's eye every single color, which your brain perceives as the color white. How this works is that the blue spot consists of a band of short wavelengths, so when it is shown alone, the short wavelength is reflected into your eye. For the yellow spot, it consists of medium to long wavelengths, so when it is presented alone, these wavelengths are also reflected into your eye, which is registered as the color yellow. We can summarize this in 3 main points. Color of light corresponds with the wavelength that exists in the visible spectrum. The color of objects are associated with the wavelengths that are reflected for opaque objects or transmitted for transparent objects. The colors that occur when mixed together are also associated with which wavelengths are reflected into the eye. Mixing paints causes fewer wavelengths to be reflected. Each paint subtracts wavelengths from the mixture, while mixing light causes more wavelengths to be reflected because each light adds wavelengths into the mixture.
Overall, mixing color is a pretty neat thing to learn about, and I hope that I was able to get you guys as excited about it as I am.